If you enjoyed any of the videos on this channel and if you're a fan, could you do me a quick favor and hit that subscribe button? Surprisingly, 85% of the people who watched my videos are unsubscribed. Your quick action of hitting that subscribe button will support this channel, and as it grows, we will be able to share even more free content with you. So the first step is to install the plugin to your Unreal Engine version. If you purchase it from Unreal Engine Marketplace or from Fab, just go to your Vault account, search for the plugin Interactive Foliage System and install it to your Unreal Engine over here. But if you download it through my Patreon page, what you need to do is unarchive the file, and then you're gonna get Foliage Interaction plugin. Right click, click on copy, then go to your Unreal Engine that you're working with. Right now I'm just using Unreal Engine 5.4 and it is under Program Files, Epic Games, Unreal Engine 5.4. Then open Engine, Plugin and Marketplace. So those are your Unreal Engine version. If you are using 5.5, you can also do the same. So go here, click on Engine, go to Plugins and search for Marketplace and right click and paste the files over here. Once you did that, go to Edit, go to Plugins, and here in the plugins search for CG, and you can find the Foliage Interaction plugin CG Viewers. Click on the Foliage Interaction plugin, and another thing that you need to do if you want to use PCG is click on the Procedural Content Generation Framework and turn it on too. Click Yes, and then restart your Unreal Engine. Now you have enabled the Foliage Interaction plugin, and let me show you how you can set it up to work with your foliages. The first thing is to create a structure. So go to your content folder and let's create a new folder where we're gonna call Foliage Interaction System. I'm gonna set up a color for it. So set color, choose white, click OK. Then go inside and let's create another folder. So right click, new folder, and this folder I'm gonna name Blueprints. I'm gonna give a color of blue to the blueprints. So right click, go to set color, new color, and select a bluish color for it. The next step is to create a blueprint with an interactive foliage component. So right click, go to Blueprints, Blueprint class, then open the all classes and search for C_FISM and this one, CFISM Interaction Foliage. Click on it and click select. Then we're gonna name this BPFISM Interactive Foliage. Now save everything, then go to your character. In this case, I'm gonna use the third person mannequin from Unreal Engine. Double click on it and let's add the foliage interaction component to this character. So go to add and search for C_foliage interaction. Just click on it and we're gonna add it to our character. Then compile and save. Then let's go back and create our assets folder. So we're gonna create assets. So I'm going to give a color of green as it represents foliages. Moving forward, we will set up the foliage. Here I have a simple plant, as you can see over here, just a simple dummy, which I'm going to use in order to set up the system, but you can follow along with your own foliages. If you want to get this simple plant, it is linked in the description. It is completely free and it is just for the testing purposes. So what I did is I just drag and drop it over here into my content browser and I applied here a master material for the plant. After you apply the master material for the plant, so I plugged it over here. What you need to do is double click on your material, on your foliage material. It doesn't matter if you have here a complex foliage material. What you need to do is you need to hook up my MS Foliage Simulation to the wind position offset. So right click and search for MS Foliage Simulation. The world position offset should be connected to the world position offset of your own material. So connect it over here, save it. I'm gonna close this. And the next step is we need to list every foliage that we're going to use to interact with in our character. So go and open your character. In this case, I'm going to open this third person character. Click on the foliage interaction component. And here under data, you have foliage mesh and foliage actors. Also, you have a search radius. This is the radius of searching the instances to try to simulate them. You can make it bigger if you want to simulate more foliages in bigger range, or if you want to have higher performance, just make it a little bit smaller. It depends on your game and the complexity of your foliages. So here in the first array, which is a mesh array, we need to add our foliage. So I'm going to select my SM plant. And in the foliage actors, we need to select our instances of foliage actor. So hit plus and search for foliage and select instanced foliage actor. After you've done all of that, compile and save. Then let's close the third person character. And right now we need to go into the foliage mode. So go here into the foliage mode, go back to your assets. And here under the paint tab, just drag and drop your plant over here. And it will create a new type of foliage and save this new foliage type under the assets and the same path that the SM plant is. So save it. And once you save it, we just need to double click on it. And here under the component class, we need to select our BPFISM interactive foliage. Select it, then hit save. Then select your foliage over here under the paint tab. And I'm just gonna select the scale to 0.5 and let's try if this is dense enough. So I'm just gonna draw some foliages over here and I'm gonna go into the select mode. Now I'm gonna hit play and let's test this out. As you can see right now, we have our foliage interactable. So this is the foliage interaction with the shader. This is a C++ code, so everything here is super optimized and the FPS overhead is super low. Moving forward, we need to create a data table where you can manipulate all the settings per foliage because we have a lot of things to tweak there. So what you need to do is let's create a new folder under the blueprints which will hold the data for our foliage system. So right click and create new folder and I'm going to call it data. And I'm going to set up again the blue color because it will contain some data type. Then right click and let's create data tables. Data tables. Here we're going to have the data tables for foliages. Right click, again set color blue. Enter here. And now let's create a data table. Right click, go under miscellaneous and click onto the data table. Here to pick from the raw structure, we need to pick the S foliage data. So search for S foliage data, select it and click OK. I'm going to name it DA for data and foliage data after that. Foliage data. Right? So I'm going to save everything, open it and hit the plus to add a component over here. And here you can see that we have name for the foliage. We have, is it static mesh? Is it skeletal mesh? Where is that skeletal mesh? What's the radius? Half the height? We have a flattering effect, we have stiffness, we have damping factor, we have mass of the foliage, we have push force. So from here, from this data table, you can give each plant different parameters and each plant will react differently in your world. So for this one, I'm just gonna put a name of plant. And here in the structure, this will be a static mesh, it will not be a skeletal mesh. So I'm gonna select my SM plant, which will be my static mesh. And here I'm gonna leave everything to default. I'm gonna save it, I'm gonna close it. So right now the next step is to get into my FSM interactive foliage. So go to the blueprints and open the FSM interactive foliage. And here you can see we can use foliage data table. So in order this data table to work, we need to connect it over here or it will work with the default parameters always. If you connect it over here, it will start search for each foliage type. Each foliage type will have different settings. So from here, we need to select our DA foliage data and then compile and save. And let me give you an example how this works. So we go back to the foliage data table and I'm just going to give stiffness to 1, not 30, just to show that it will react differently. So I'm going to hit play. And right now, when I go and interact with the plant, you can see how slow it will move when I interact. And if I go to my data table and for the stiffness I put 100, click save, now it will react differently. See how fast it goes back? Right, so from here, from all the settings, you can start manipulating all your foliage data over here into this data table. And just to show you a two type of foliages, I duplicated this one and just name it SM Plant 2. And what I did is in my data foliage, here I added a plant yellow and set up the stiffness to 1 so it can be slow. I save this one and I also get into my character in the third person character and added the second plant, of course. And the other thing that I did was to add the MF Foliage simulation, the world position to the world position of the new dummy shader. And right now, if we test it, the first one is reacting pretty fast because we have the stiffness at 100, and the yellow ones, you can see that they're going back pretty slow, and the data table is working. So this is how you can create different type of plans to react differently to your character through setting the data table and giving here different values in the data table to set up your environment to look perfectly, and each foliage to have different reaction to the interaction of the character. In the next step, we're gonna add rigged foliages where we can have physically accurate interaction with a rigged foliage. I'm just gonna drag and drop my SKM rigged fern. You can download it from the link in the description of this video. It is completely free, and import it into my assets folder. I'm gonna hit import all, and it will import my rigged skeleton, it will import my physical mesh and my skeleton. Right now I'm gonna rename the master material rigged fern. This is just for the sake of the video. I'm gonna double click on it, and here again we need to add the MF Foliage simulation. So right click MF Foliage and search for the under MISC MF Foliage simulation. Connect the normal map to the normal map this time, and connect the world position offset to the world position offset. For this fern, I'm gonna give something like an orange color, and I'm gonna hit save. I'm gonna also drag the static mesh, which is rigged fern. This fern I got from Megascans, and I've rigged the static mesh, but you need to add the static mesh if you want to use the foliage paint tool onto your landscape. So SKM stands for skeletal mesh and SM stands for static mesh. So I'm gonna add the static mesh also to my project, click import, and I'm gonna double click on my static mesh and connect the material that I've just created for the rigged fern. Connect it over here, save it, close it, and delete the newly created material. The next step is to create a foliage type from the static mesh. So I'm gonna go to the foliage section, and I'm gonna drag and drop the static mesh over here, and it will create a new foliage type. I'm gonna save, and right now we have the rigged foliage type of the fern. Double click on it, and what you need to do is you need to select the BP FISM interactive foliage, click save. The next step is we need to feed our data table with the new skeletal mesh. So go to your data table, open the data table, and create another row over here. I'm gonna name it rigged fern. And for the static mesh, I'm gonna select my static mesh for the fern, which is from Quixel. I'm gonna select it. And the next one is you need to select the skeletal mesh. So this will be my skeletal mesh rigged fern. The idea behind this method is when you're far away, we're gonna load the static mesh, and when you get near the plant and you need to interact with it, we're gonna load the rigged fern. In that way, we saved a lot of performance. Now for the skeletal mesh, we need to create a new blueprint. So I'm gonna hit plus button. I'm gonna go under Foliage Interaction System Blueprints, and I'm gonna name this BP Foliage Mesh, and I'm gonna save it. So in the new BP Foliage Mesh that we've created through the data table, I'm just gonna save this, and I'm gonna save the data table. Select the skeletal mesh over here. Click on Collapse All Categories and search for Physics. Here under Physics, click on Advanced, and here under Sleep Family, we're gonna set up to be Custom. Now under the Custom Sleep Threshold Multiplier, we're gonna put 10,000. And under the Stabilization Threshold Multiplier, we're gonna put 10. I'm gonna compile and save. Now go and check the collision. Under collision, you should have here under collision presets, no collision. The next step is to open rendering, hit the plus, open it, and under here, just put 1. And what we are missing over here is that we didn't point out a mesh. So here I'm gonna open the mesh, and I'm gonna select the skeletal mesh rigged fern. I'm gonna compile, and I'm gonna save. And here is skeletal mesh will be 1. And the next step is to open the physics, set up the colliders, and set up the constraints. So double click on your rigged fern physics, select the root and all the leaves, and delete all those generated colliders. Go over here to the gear and select show all bones, because we need to see the bones of our rigged fern. Then select all the bones except the root bone over here, everything, right click, add shape, and add a box shape. Now we've added a box colliders to the foliage. And now what we need to define is the constraints. So this part of the bone should hold this part of the bone, and those two should be held by this one. And this is created through a constraints. So I'm just gonna hide the bones over here and leave only the colliders. Select everything over here. And let's set up the mass, the linear damping and the angular damping. This will be the default values. So I'm gonna set up the mass for this collider 0.1. For the linear damping, I'm gonna put 0.5. And for the angular damping, I'm gonna put 0.5. I'm going to disable the gravity because we want our character to interact with the foliage, not the gravity. And for the physics type, I want it to be simulated because I want to simulate this physics onto this fern. The one thing that you need to set up is we need to set up the roots of each leaf. So each leaf have a root. Let me select every root bone over here. So I've selected all the root bones, and those root bones should be from physics type kinematic because we want them to be static and not simulated, and we want the physics to be simulated and driven from this root bone. If you want the other root bones, so for example, if you want the physics to go and simulate only those 3 bones, you need to select also the 7_1. It depends on your taste and what you want to achieve. So I'm going to select the physics type kinematic, and when our character is start to interact with the root bones, they will not move, and the physics for the other root bones will be dictated from this root bone. So this is like an anchor for the other root bones, and that's why I selected kinematic. So the next thing is we need to drive the constraints, which will be the root bone and how they need to be connected like a chain. So I'm gonna select leaf 1_0 and select the next leaf, and I want to be constrained. Select bodies. I'm gonna select constrain. So I'm constraining this body to this one, and now I want to constrain this and this. Right click, constrain, and I'm constraining this one to this one, and I'm gonna do this for this. There is a hotkey which is Control plus Y, so I'm going to use the hotkey, this one and this one, Control Y, this one and this one, Control Y. And over here you can see that I'm constraining them together. You need to do this per leaf, so I'm going to select those, Control Y, select those two, Control Y, those two, Control Y, Control Y. You need to drive the constraints to every single chain, so it dictates which bone with which bone is constrained. 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 1, 5 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5. Repeat this step for each leaf that you have on your foliage, depending on your foliage. If you're working with mine, just do the constraints for every leaf over here. And right now the constraints are done. And let's check out the constraints. So I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna hide everything, and I'm gonna show the constraints to see if everything is looking good, if I didn't miss something. And now we need to make the constraints work, how the skeletal mesh will be rotating and how it can bend. So I'm gonna select all the constraints over here, and here in the property panel, let's set up a few things. The first thing that I want to set is I want to disable the collisions between constraints, so disable this. The next thing that we want to set up is how it will move in the angle. So we're gonna search for angular motor, angular limits. Here under angular motor, what we need to do is we want our constraints to twist and swing. Because this is a foliage and the leaves are light, it should twist and swing when your character is interacting with it. Check what we'll drive. We're gonna drive the twist and we're gonna drive the swing. And we want to have a target velocity also for the twist and for the swing. And under the target velocity strength, I'm gonna put 0 because I want the character to drive the velocity. Now I'm gonna save and let's test this out. Here in this view, we can do a simulation. So just click on those 2 arrows, go into the simulation mode. And right now what we can do is we can simulate each leaf and see how it interacts. And over here with shift and right mouse button, we can interact with each collider over here and see if the setup is correct. And as you can see, the leaf is reacting pretty good. Of course, you can change the mass per collision, so you can have different kind of movement. Feel free to experiment with the settings, but right now everything looks good on my end and everything works pretty well. Save this up and let's close the window. Now what we need to do is we need to go back to our character and tell him that this is a new foliage that he will interact with. So go under Foliage Meshes and select your foliage interaction component, hit on the plus button and select the SM Fern. This time it's not the skeletal mesh, it's the static mesh. Select it, select compile and save, close this down. And before we start testing out, I need to go into my data table, and for the foliage meshes, here the radius of interaction should be higher. Something like 300. You need to enable the character interaction before your character reaches the foliage. Save it, close it. So what's left for us is to paint a few foliages. I'm gonna select the foliage tool and let's start painting some foliages. Select the foliage. I'm gonna put the maximum of 3, the minimum scaling of 1, and the density should be like 50. And I'm gonna start painting a few foliages over here. Right, let's go back to selection, F11, hit play. Those foliages are working and those foliages are working again. As you can see, those foliages are way more interactable because we are working with the skeletal mesh, we are working with the collision. And if you want to have you know, better collision than this one, just play with the mass, have fewer colliding points, or your colliding points should be way up. But right now everything is working pretty good. Also those will work, and if we go away from them, they will turn into static meshes. So this is pretty much how you can set up your foliage and how it can be interactable. Also, you can lock the rotation, the twist of the foliages through the component that we set up through the constraints. So feel free to experiment. There's a lot of options over here that you can tweak and you can achieve the result that you want. But this is the tutorial how you can integrate your plugin into your project and utilize the power of the foliage interaction system. Thank you guys for watching this one. Check out the other videos on my channel. See ya in the next video.